Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga. Sanjay recounted Madhusudana, Lord Krishna then spoke in his divine voice unto Arjuna, who was terribly upset and overcome with grief and guilt at the thought of war he was about to enter into. The divine Lord Krishna commences to speak. Therefore, the actual Gita starts at this point. The blessed Lord asked of Arjuna, "Dear Arjuna, why have you been struck with fear, guilt, and sorrow at this moment?" The great Lord Krishna continued, "O Arjuna, be brave, be a bold, courageous man. Do not be a coward and a feeble person. It doesn't suit you, such a great warrior and killer of the enemy as you." Arjuna asked the Lord, "O Madhusudana, the killer of foes, tell me how I am to kill Bhishma and Drona when they are both worthy of my worship." Arjuna continued, "It is much better to live on a beggar's earning than to kill the great saints or gurus. After killing them, I will enjoy material wealth and pleasure stained with their blood." Arjuna continued, "The sons of Dhritarashtra stand here before us as our opponents and enemies. It is difficult to say which is better, whether they should destroy us or whether we should conquer them. If we choose to slay them, how can we possibly care to live on?" Arjun spoke unto the Lord, "Please, dear Lord, I am your disciple. Kindly guide and instruct me, for I have taken refuge and shelter in you. I am confused as to my duties and what is good for me. I beg you to give me knowledge, wisdom, and a clear, logical mind. I cannot find any cure for the great grief I suffer, O Krishna, even though by winning this war I would achieve great power and rule over the earth and the heavens." Sanjay said, "Dear Dhritarashtra, my great king, after addressing Rishikesha, Gurakesh, and Paramtapah, Arjun spoke clearly to the great Lord Krishna in a determined and assured voice that he would not fight, and then became silent again. "O Arjuna," Rishikesha spoke smilingly as Arjuna stood between the two armies. "Arjuna, you show your grief and compassion for those who do not deserve your grief, compassion, or sympathy. Although your words are filled with wisdom, you must remember the wise man never grieve for the living or for the dead. Arjuna, always remember there has never been a time when you or any of the great warriors present here were not alive or non-existent, nor will we all at any time cease to exist and live on in the future." Lord Krishna continued, "Dear Arjuna, the wise never get confused by the fact that the Atma or soul goes through the stages of childhood, youth, and old age along with the body. When one body ceases to function, the soul passes on to another body. The cycle is then repeated once more." The blessed Lord continued, "O son of Kunti, when the senses come in contact with their sensual objects, feeling of heat, cold, pain, and pleasure, these feelings last only for a short time. They will come and go. Bear them patiently, dear Arjun. Only he who is not affected by these senses and sensual objects become immortal, for he is considered the best of the men because he is well balanced in pain and pleasure." The blessed God stated, "The unreal does not exist and the real always exists. Those with peaceful, pure, and wise minds know the truth about the real and the unreal. He who is completely indestructible, present everywhere in the universe, and is imperishable, regard him as God, O Arjuna." The blessed Lord explained, O Arjuna, only the body can be destroyed, but the soul is indestructible, permanent and immortal. Therefore, Arjuna, pick up your weapons and start fighting. O Arjuna, he who thinks of the soul as a killer and he who thinks that soul can be killed is ignorant, because the soul can never be killed, nor can it kill anyone or anything. The blessed Lord said, Dear Arjuna, the Atman or soul can neither be born nor can it die. It is forever immortal, eternal and ancient. The soul in a body does not die when the body itself perishes and ceases to exist. The soul always lives on. Arjuna, he who knows the soul to be eternal, indestructible, permanent, unborn, and endless, that person can neither kill nor be killed. The blessed Lord said, just as a person gets rid of all clothing and replaces the old clothing with the new ones, similarly the soul changes from one body to a new body when its body has become old, worn out, and has stopped functioning. The soul cannot be cut by weapons, burnt by fire, absorbed by air, nor can water wet the soul. The soul is eternal, everlasting. It cannot be destroyed, broken, or burned. It cannot become wet nor become dried. The soul is the most stable thing in the universe. It is immovable and present throughout the universe. The blessed Lord stated, the soul cannot be seen. With this mind, dear, changed by any means. With this mind, dear Arjuna, one should never grieve. Even if you incorrectly believe, O Arjuna, that the soul is constantly taking birth and dying, you should still not become upset and filled with grief and sadness. The Lord continued, Dear Arjuna, knowing the fact that anything that takes birth will eventually die, it seems pointless to grieve over someone's death, especially if you knew that the death had to take place anyway. Arjuna, all beings are unseen before birth, are seen after birth, and during their lives. Again, however, all beings are unseen after death, so what cause is there to worry? Few look upon the soul with curiosity, some talk and hear of the soul with curiosity and enchantment, but in the end, there is nobody who can really understand and comprehend the soul. Arjuna, although the body can be slain, the soul cannot. The soul of a being lives on forever. Therefore, it is not necessary to grieve over anybody's death, because the most important part of them never dies at all, and that is their souls. Looking upon your duty, Arjuna, as a Kshatriya, you should never be afraid, but be courageous, because there is nothing better for a Kshatriya than to fight in a righteous war. Dear Arjuna, you should consider yourself a very lucky warrior to fight in a war where for the victor the prize is entrance to the gates of the heaven. By not fighting this war, O Arjuna, you are committing a sin, because you fail to perform your duty as a warrior, and you also will lose your honor. People will talk and look upon you, O Arjuna, with disrespect. There is only one thing worse than death itself, and that is disrespect for a respectable man. O Arjuna, your high esteem and reputation will become ruined if you do not fight with this battle. The mighty warrior will consider you lower than them and will believe that you did not fight the battle because you feared the opponent. You will experience tremendous pain when your enemies will laugh at your lack of strength and courage and say many shameful and humiliating things about you, O Arjuna. O Arjuna, if you fight this battle, think of how it shall benefit you. If you die during battle, you will go to heaven and be in eternal peace. If you shall be victorious, O Arjuna, you will be the ruler of this kingdom. O Arjuna, stand up, take courage and fight. The blessed Lord spoke unto Arjuna, O Arjuna, by considering victory and defeat, pleasure and pain, gain and loss, with indifference you will not commit any sin. O Arjuna, you already have been presented knowledge. Now you must put this knowledge to practical use, O Arjuna, with selfless Karam Yoga. O Arjuna, by doing your duty and leaving the results of your actions to the Lord, you will break the bonds of karma. When one practices yoga, there is no fear of destruction. The person does not suffer a loss of honest effort in whatever he or she attempts. Even by practicing a little bit of yoga, one is protected from great fear of death or danger. Peace of mind is slowly obtained. Those with a firm mind, O Arjuna, are decisive about everything. Those whose minds are infirm and are not decisive in their actions, and their intellect wanders in many directions. O Arjuna, unwise people who think of nothing but material desires and pleasures, and who believe in the Vedas as well, think that heaven means the absolute end of oneself. These same people, O Arjuna, speak beautiful words describing heaven in all its glory and beauty. They speak of heaven as the ultimate goal for one to achieve in life. They speak of all the good actions they have performed in life, and that the result of their good deeds will be the gaining of worldly pleasures and everlasting wealth in their present life, as well as ensure favorable and pleasant birth in their next life. O Arjuna, these ignorant people who seek pleasure through material possessions and prosperity are brainwashed and obsessed with the desire for more and higher material pleasure. Because of this brainwashed state of mind and this obsession, they are unable to think logically and lack of the wisdom to make wise decisions for themselves in life. The blessed Lord spoke, the Vedas deal mainly with the three gunas, qualities and nature. One of these is known as the material portion of life in the world. You must overcome all of these gunas, O Arjuna. Get rid of all your doubts, free yourself of all frustrations and grief, and devote mind and soul to God. This is true peace and happiness. O Arjuna, to an enlightened soul, the Vedas are only as useful as a tank of water during a flood. O Arjuna, always remember what I am about to say to you, for it is the law of karma, a law that one should always obey in life should he ever feel resentment, frustration, anxiety, or grief. You have the right only to perform your actions, duties, and responsibilities in your life. However, the result of these actions should not concern you at all. You should not even desire results for your actions, because the results are simply not in your hands but in the hands of the Lord. Neither should you lean towards inaction. The Divine Lord said, O Arjuna, perform all your actions with an even mind. In other words, do not feel overjoyed at the successes in your life, and do not allow yourself to feel overcome with grief because of any failures you may encounter on life. Rid yourself of any attachments to the material things, and always remember that the results of your action is in the Lord's hands. If you react the same way, regardless of the results of your actions, you are performing what is known as Karma Yoga. The blessed Lord said unto Arjuna, when actions are performed by a person for any selfish motive or gain, that person shall always suffer and remain disappointed in life. Those, however, who practice Karma Yoga or the Yoga of even-mindedness are free from any worries or disappointments, for they do not care for the results of their actions and duties. That person who devotes himself to a life of Karam Yoga with no selfish motives in mind does not become hungry for power, nor does he become attached to any of the bad and disgusting things in the life. Therefore, O Arjuna, always strive to achieve selfless Karam Yoga, for this is the path of perfection in life. Those individuals who have devoted their lives to the practice of Karam Yoga, they not only free themselves of the worries that accompany anticipation of results after performing certain actions, but also free themselves of all sins and achieve the supreme state of everlasting peace and happiness. When you finally reach the state where your mind is free from all attachments and pleasures in life, your intellect will clear and will give you the ability to think logically and wisely whenever you need to. Your intellect, O Arjuna, will then allow you to distinguish between the real and the unreal in life. You will no longer have conflicts about opinion of life's many aspects and characteristics. Know what is of importance and of no importance. Finally, you will reach the state where you will have achieved Karam Yoga, a state of long-lasting peace and happiness. Arjuna asked the Lord, Dear Keshav, what are the characteristics of a man who is very wise, has a firm intellect, and is placed or engrossed in a superconscious state? How does this type of person speak, sit, and walk? The divine Lord Krishna replied, O Arjuna, one is said to have steady wisdom if he completely frees himself from desires of the mind and heart and is realistically satisfied within himself, no more having the longing for material pleasures. He whose mind is unaffected by misery or pleasure and is free from all bonds and attachments, fear and anger, is man of steady wisdom and decisive intellect. A man have a decisive intellect who is no longer attached to anything showing pleasure if something pleasant happens and displeasure if something unpleasant occurs. Just as a tortoise withdraws or retreats its limb onto a shell, a person with a firm mind and decisive intellect can withdraw his senses from sensual objects. One who does not use his senses for the enjoyment of sensual objects can overcome and rise above the sensual objects. However, he is not able to leave off the attachments to his senses. One who realizes God or the Supreme gets rid of attachments to the senses as well. The blessed Lord said, even those who are wise and striving to achieve spiritual happiness and freedom are carried away violently or with great force by their excited senses. The yogis or my divine devotees have gained or achieved self-control. They have complete control of their senses and therefore they have also earned the power of constant wisdom. Their minds are constantly focused and concentrated on me, the supreme goal. Those who always think about sensual objects get attached to those objects. Attachment arouses desires, and when one does not get what one desires, irritation is aroused, and from irritation stems anger and frustrations. The blessed Lord spoke, from anger stems delusion. Delusions cause loss of one's confused mind. The confused mind makes a person lose his ability to reason and lose their power to solve his problem. When one loses his power to reason, the person will suffer ultimate death and destruction. But the disciplined person who has control over his senses and is free from attraction and emotional distraction gains peace and purity of the self. Purity of the self gets rid of all miseries and grief. A person with internal purity soon develops steady wisdom and a clear, unclouded intelligence. One who cannot control his senses is one who is lacking in steady wisdom and intelligence and also lacks proper feelings or sentiments. A person who cannot think properly and make decisions with a clear mind cannot have peace of mind, and without peace of mind there can be no happiness. The mind of those who run after or pursue material pleasures and sensual objects is often clouded and led on the wrong path, just as the wind blows away the ship on the waters. O Arjuna, therefore, with senses under control, protected from sensual objects, not only does one have the ability to reason things out properly, but also gains peace of mind leading to eternal bliss and happiness. When it is night for all others, the wise man is always awake. When others are aware and deceived by sensual objects, the wise man who knows the truth and has realized God shuts his eye to daylight and the misleading material objects that attract people and considers it night. He is not easily deceived. As the river enters the ocean without affecting the ocean or disturbing it, so the desires enter the person who has obtained supreme peace, but not the person who is already filled with the desires and wants more and more. The blessed Lord said, by giving up all the desires, freeing oneself of all attachments, and without constantly thinking of oneself or of one's possessions, only then one may live in realistic peace. The blessed Lord spoke, O Arjuna, this is the state of a person who has truly realized God. After obtaining supreme bliss by realizing God, this person cannot be deceived by any of life's evils. Until the time of death, one remains firm in this state and ultimately achieves supreme peace and tranquility.